an implosion in the fourth quarter of their last game allowed a 9-point lead to turn into a 10-point loss. Once again, Milford would need to find a way to pick themselves back up as they faced a must-win game at home against the Stoughton Black Knights. Early on in this game, it was clear there was a carryover effect from their previous game for Milford, and Stoughton would take advantage. The first points of the game would go to Stoughton big man Obina Ugwakazi, who despite a good defensive effort from Dom Schofield is able to elevate and drop in the one-handed shot. From there, the offense would start to flow primarily through junior Miles Gringalunas Powell. Here he fakes the pass outside, freezing all 5 Milford defenders long enough to connect on an easy jumper. Then off the three-point miss, Powell finds himself in good position for the rebound, and he lays it back in for 2 more. And then it's back to the nearly identical spot on the floor as his first bucket for another successful basket that would put the Black Knights on a 10-0 run to open the night. Finally, we'd see a miss out of Powell on Stoughton's next trip up the floor. Brendan White would secure the rebound, and he'd dish the outlet pass ahead to Matt Vardaregian all alone up the floor, and he would take it in to finally give the Hawks their first points of the quarter. Milford's only other points from the field would come late in the period, as Danny Corsini would sink a deep three-pointer to cut it to a 2-possession Stoughton lead. But Stoughton would then answer with a 3 of their own from junior Thomas Sanda, and eventually the first quarter would end with the Black Knights on top 16-9. It would be a better start to the second quarter for the Hawks. A series of offensive rebounds would keep play alive for Milford, and eventually Jordan Darling would convert under the basket. Take a look at Danny Corsini here. He weaves a pass through traffic to Ralph Franklin Jr. down low, and Franklin is able to hang in there against some tough defense to get the shot. A free throw from Corsini would cut the deficit to just 2 points, but from there that combo of Ugwakazi and Powell would start to heat back up. With the defense staying close to Powell, he would start feeding his big man in the low post, and Ugwakazi would come through with back-to-back impressive buckets to push the Stoughton lead back up to 6. And it's back to Powell, who makes an absolute power move to the basket, getting the shot and the foul. Milford would have no answers for the skill and athleticism of Miles Gringalunas Powell throughout the first half. Here he gets clear of Vardaregian and knocks down the shot to give the Knights an 11-point lead with time winding down in the half. Milford would again pull themselves to within striking distance thanks to a pair of free throws from Darling and a big 3 from Matt Vardaregian to cut the deficit back down to 6. But the final minutes of the half would be owned by Stoughton. The Knights would score 8 of the final 10 points of the half, including a 3 from way downtown just before the buzzer, courtesy of a Jean Roux, that would give Stoughton a 12-point lead at 36-24. It would hover around a 12-point Stoughton lead through the early minutes of the third. Finally, after Milford wins back possession through a scrum, Saylor would find Corsini with a pass, and Danny would show great touch getting the floater to fall. About 4 minutes in, we'd see Brendan White fight through contact for what would be the senior's first points from the field all night. White would then continue a perfect night at the free throw line, cutting the Stoughton lead back down to 7. The run would continue for Milford seconds later as Jordan Darling pushes ahead in transition and gets Ugwakazi to bite on the Euro step before finishing with the right hand to bring it to a 39-34 score. Ugwakazi would get his revenge on Darling a few seconds later as he outworks the sophomore for position under the basket, getting the shot and the foul. That would set off an 8-2 run for the Knights that would take us down to the final seconds of the third. It was then that Brendan White would give the Hawks a huge jolt of momentum as he takes the ball the length of the floor and seems to levitate in mid-air as he releases the three-pointer right before the buzzer and drains it to make it an 8-point game with 8 minutes to play. A big 3 ended the third quarter for Milford, and they would come through with another to open the scoring in the fourth as Dom Schofield gets left all alone. He would get fouled as he released the shot, and the big man would finish off a 4-point play to instantly cut the Milford deficit in half. Stoughton would work the lead back up to 8 with about 6.5 minutes to go when White would pull off the steal, and he'd go coast to coast for the bucket that would prove to be a huge turning point in the game. Off the ensuing inbounds, Colby Perez would force another Stoughton turnover, and the junior would take it in to cut it to a 4-point margin. We take you down to 5 minutes to play and Stoughton clinging to a 3-point lead. Milford would put it in the hands of White out on the wing, and the captain would drain the shot and would go on to finish Milford's second 4-point play of the quarter, bringing Milford all the way back to take their first lead of the night. Stoughton would briefly tie the game back up at 53, but Milford would then travel back up the floor where White would chip in another huge offensive rebound, leading to the layup for Corsini that would push Milford back on top. From there, Brendan White would make sure the Hawks held on to that lead for good. White would pour in 3 more three-pointers over the final 3 minutes of the game. For the second time in 3 games, Brendan White would produce 15 fourth-quarter points. Milford as a team would outscore the Knights 27-8 in the fourth, and as a result, they would keep their playoff hopes alive for another day. Milford digs deep to earn the 66-55 comeback win over the Stoughton Black Knights. This is Milford TV News and Sports Director Tim Coette. Make sure you check out new editions of the Milford Informer every Friday at 7:30 p.m. or during one of our 8 convenient re-air times throughout the weekend. You can also find individual news stories as well as full archived editions on our YouTube page My Milford TV. If you live in the greater Milford area and have an idea for a news story, you can tweet at us using the handle @Milford_TV, or you can contact me directly by sending an email to news@milfordtv.net.